everyone. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with President Trump touting an electronically signed deal with Iran to end the war. The announcement coincided with the president's arrival in Europe for the G7. An official signing ceremony is expected to take place in Switzerland Friday.
I'm very happy to say very signed. The deal's all signed. And the strait is already partially open. The main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, which is what it was all about.
It's unclear, though, if that's what the memo that's signed says. Senior U.S. officials do say nuclear talks will be prioritized during the upcoming 60-day negotiation window with Iran. They say the full text of the memo of understanding will be released in the next day or two. It will bring an immediate halt to hostilities, and President Trump says the Strait of Hormuz will fully open to ship traffic Friday, though, as we just heard, the president says it has already partially reopened. There are still discrepancies between what we're hearing from each side of the negotiating table. Iranian officials claim the country will get roughly half of its $24 billion in frozen funds before final negotiations are completed. Senior U.S. officials say no frozen assets have been released so far. Earlier on CBS Mornings, Vice President J.D. Vance told our Ed O'Keefe Americans need to be skeptical of what they hear coming from the Iranian side.
The hardliners in the Iranian system will overemphasize the benefits that Iran gets while underemphasizing all the things that they have to concede and all the things they have to provide in order to get these benefits. So we absolutely are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon.
Following the announcement of a preliminary deal, oil prices dropped. As of Monday evening, Brent crude and West Texas intermediate prices per barrel have tumbled roughly 5% since the announcement. It's important to note, though, this is still over $10 more expensive than pre-war levels. CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi is traveling with the president in Geneva. So no text from this has been released. We're also hearing differing reports from both sides. What do we know about what's included?
Well, Lindsay, it's good to be with you. The vice president actually was just on CNN, and he gave a little bit more details about the MOU, namely the number of pages it is. It's only a page and a half. So it's not very in-depth as far as the details go. We know what is in it are three things, really. The U.S. blockade in the Gulf of Oman will be lifted. The Strait of Hormuz will be reopened, and there will be 60 days for those technical nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran and potentially other mediators as well. But really, the devil is in the details here, because even though those three things are technically agreed upon, there are still some discrepancies. Namely, Iran says that it will be able to impose tolls on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, the U.S. says this will be a toll-free operation for ships going through the strait. When it comes to the nuclear program, yes, there will be 60 days of negotiations, but still that nuclear dust, as the president likes to call it, what happens to that? Who goes in there, whether it's the U.S. military, an active role, in an observing role to take those materials out, whether it's a formal atomic agency group going in there to survey it. Still tons of questions. Also, just the fact that if it is only a page and a half, why is it going to take another 24 to 48 hours for this to potentially be released? That's what we've heard from senior administration officials, is that it could take more time before we actually see the text of this document. So a lot of outstanding questions here on this Monday evening in Geneva.
Why did Iran agree to this? What did they get from this preliminary deal?
Well, given the fact that it is scant on details, there are a few things that are not fully laid out in there. One of them is the ballistic missile program. That was something that the U.S. and certainly European allies wanted to see as part of these negotiations, because those ballistic missiles can reach into Europe. Seemingly so far, that is not a major pillar of this MOU, which would somehow seem to be a win for the Iranians, at least this part in the negotiations. Also, there's just no clear guidelines right now about the lifting of sanctions for the Iranians. And The vice president has said numerous times today that this is one of those performance-based deals, that depending on their performance, they will be able to get some of those funds, and it could come in the form of unfreezing assets, lifting sanctions, or even corralling U.S. allies in the region to go into Iran and help them rebuild. That would be an enormous amount of aid given to the Iranians. So that seems to be somewhat of an attractive deal for them, part of the reason why they perhaps were willing to sign on to this at this point.
Olivia, Rinaldi, thank you. The potential for an end to the fighting is being welcomed in the Gulf region. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab has more.
Well, Gulf states, which have suffered Iranian attacks and saw their energy-driven economies disruptive, have welcomed the deal and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, CBS News can confirm at least 2 vessels have already crossed, but that's only a fraction of the 138 ships which used to transit each day before the war. Still, President Trump has promised that the strait will be fully reopened and that both Iran and the U.S. will remove their dueling blockades, which has really ground this important waterway to a halt. We have to remember, at least 1/5 of the world's energy passes through the Strait of Hormuz, or used to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And for the past 3 months, it's really affected oil prices around the world. Now, in light of this MOU, we do understand that oil prices have tumbled to quite a considerable degree, but it really doesn't answer just how serious this energy crisis is and just how badly it's affecting so many parts of the world, not least the U.S., which has seen gas prices soar. Still, it really does beg the question just what exactly is going to happen when we enter the next phase of this negotiation, in which the U.S. and Iran have 60 days to work out some of the more thornier issues. That includes its nuclear program, it includes its proxies around the world, and indeed includes how Iran will see its economy move forward. And that, of course, revolves around sanctions. All of these are incredibly complicated issues the U.S. and Iran will have to work on to try to move forward from months of war. Back to you.
Imtiaz Tyab, thank you.